Welcome to my channel.
And this is English Podcast Station.
You know, there's that question that always seems to pop up in English conversations, especially when you're getting to know someone new.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
So, where are you from? It sounds simple, right? But really being able to talk about your hometown well in English, that's a pretty useful skill.
It really is. It's more than just naming a place. It's about sharing a bit of yourself,
Yeah.
where you came from.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We're focusing on this fantastic resource, specifically for English learners, the Talking About Your Hometown audio from IELTS podcast.
Ah, right. With James and Erica.
Yeah, them. Think of them as our guides for this. We're sort of using their material as a base.
And what's really helpful about their approach, I think, is how structured it is. They really break down how to talk about your hometown step by step.
Makes it less scary, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're just starting out and thinking, how do I even begin to describe this place in English?
Exactly. It gives you a clear path.
So consider this deep dive our way of pulling out the best bits for you. We listened to James and Erica, took their key advice, and we want to help you feel, confident talking about your own hometown.
We're unpacking their method, looking at why it works so well, especially for beginners.
Yeah, that structured approach is key, breaking it into smaller pieces. Build your vocabulary, build your confidence.
It's not about just memorizing lines. It's about understanding the different parts of describing a place.
Okay, so let's dig in. First things first, what even is a hometown? How do James and Erica define it?
Right. They keep it pretty simple. It's the city or the town or maybe the village where you were born or where you grew up as a child.
Okay. But what if, life's complicated, like you were born somewhere but mostly grew up somewhere else?
That's a good point, and they actually cover that. They say if that's your situation, you just choose the place that feels more like home. The place you spent those important childhood years.
Okay. So it's about your connection to the place.
Exactly. So when someone asks, where's your hometown? They're just asking about the place you feel you're from, your roots.
Got it. It's just an opening to share a bit about yourself.
Precisely. A conversation starter.
All right. So you know what your hometown is. Now, how do you start describing it? Where do James and Erica suggest starting?
Well, they recommend starting with some basic categories, like building blocks.
Okay. What kind of blocks?
Things like location, where is it, size, big or small, people, what are they like, generally, the weather, obviously, and then just, your basic feelings of what do you like about it, maybe what you don't like.
That sounds like a really solid framework. Could you give us some simple example phrases a beginner could use for those?
Sure. For location, maybe my hometown is in the south of my country, or it's near the coast.
Simple enough.
For size, it's a small town,
Yeah.
or it's a pretty big city. For people. The people are friendly, or maybe people there are quite reserved.
Yeah.
Weather. It is hot in summer. It rains a lot in winter. And feelings, I like the parks, or I don't like the traffic. Really basic stuff to start.
And Erica gives an example, right? Combining these about her town in Italy.
Yeah, she does. She says something like, it's a small town, it's by the sea, the weather's warm, people are friendly, and she likes the beaches and the food. See? Simple sentences, but together they paint a picture.
Okay, cool. So that gives you the basic outline, but talking about specific places must make it more interesting, right?
Definitely. Those first categories are good for an overview, but mentioning actual places, landmarks, specific spots, that's what makes it feel real. Helps the listener picture it.
What sort of places do they suggest talking about?
Well, common things you find in most places, like schools, parks, markets, shops, maybe natural things like a river or mountains nearby, or maybe important buildings like temples or churches, depending on the place.
And how would a learner talk about those simply?
You could say things like, there is a big park in my hometown, or my hometown has 2 schools. Simple structures. In my hometown, there is a river. People go there to relax.
Right. And James shares something personal too, doesn't he? About a place.
Yeah, he talks about a bakery near his house from when he was a kid. He remembers going there often. That little specific detail makes it much more, vivid.
Totally. And speaking of personal stuff, they also talk about sharing childhood memories, right? How does that help?
Oh, hugely. Adding those little stories, those personal memories, it adds warmth, makes it more engaging. People connect with experiences more than just facts.
So, how could a beginner introduce a memory like that?
Simple ways, like when I was a child, I played in the field, or I remember going to school with my friends. Easy starting phrases.
And do James and Erica share their own examples?
They do, yeah. Erica mentions riding her bike around her town, gives you a feeling of a safe, maybe small community. James talks about visiting his grandmother and the food she made, which highlights family connection.
Nice. Okay, what about things like festivals or local events? Lots of places have unique ones.
Absolutely. Talking about those is a great way to show the town's personality, its culture, adds real character to the description.
Gotcha. So, example sentences.
Could be like, we celebrate a flower festival every spring, or there's a big music event every year in the summer.
And their examples.
Erica talks about a winter fair, with games and food, suggesting community spirit. James mentions a summer sports day, which kind of paints a picture of an active community.
Okay, location, people, places, memories, events. What about food? Everyone loves talking about food.
Oh, definitely. Food is such a good topic. It connects people, shares culture. Describing local dishes can make your hometown sound really appealing.
So, useful phrases for food talk.
You could say, my hometown is famous for fish curry, for example, or
Mhm.
there is a special sweet called jalebi in my town. Describe it a bit. The food is spicy, or maybe people love to eat rice and meat.
And James and Erica have specific food examples too.
Yeah, and they're good ones. James talks about Boston being famous for clam chowder, describes it as a tasty seafood soup.
Yeah.
And Erica talks about maple syrup from her Canadian hometown, often eaten with pancakes. Very evocative, right? Makes it easy to imagine.
Definitely. Okay, so we've covered a lot about describing your hometown, but conversation is a two-way street. What questions can a beginner ask someone else about their hometown?
Good point. Asking questions is crucial. James and Erica give some really useful, simple ones.
Like what?
Well, the obvious one. Where is your hometown? Then maybe follow up with, what is it like? Or show interest by asking, do you like your hometown?
And the food question.
Yes, always a good one. What food is famous there? Or what kind of food is your hometown known for?
And they sort of act it out, don't they? A little Q&A.
Yeah, just a quick exchange. James asks Erica. She answers briefly. Then she asks us about food. He talks about the chowder. It's a nice little model of how it might go.
Cool. Okay, let's get practical again. Transportation. How do you talk about how people get around?
Right, talking about transport gives a sense of daily life, the town's setup, useful info.
So, basic ways to describe it.
Simple sentences work best. There are buses. People ride bicycles a lot, or maybe there is no train. Just the facts.
And their examples, James and Erica.
James mentions the subway in his hometown, which suggests a bigger city. Erica says in hers, most people use cars, and the bus isn't very frequent, hinting at maybe a more rural or spread out place.
Right. Now, hometowns don't stay the same, do they? They change. How can learners talk about that?
Yeah, acknowledging change adds depth. Shows the place has a history, it's evolving.
What are some easy phrases for that?
Things like, it is different now, or there are more buildings now. Maybe it is more modern than before.
And did James and Erica give examples of changes in their towns?
Mm-hmm. Erica mentioned a new shopping center being built, indicating some growth. James talked about an old school being replaced by a new one, showing infrastructure changes.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, talking about what you miss about your hometown. That can be quite emotional.
It can, yeah. And sharing that adds a really personal, sometimes nostalgic layer. It shows what you value about the place.
What sort of things might people miss? Simple examples.
Often it's people. I miss my friends. I miss my family. Or the feeling, I miss the quiet life. Or even sensory things.
And what did James and Erica say they missed?
Erica mentioned missing the snow and drinking hot chocolate in winter, a very specific, cozy image. James talked about missing that bakery again, and specifically the smell of the fresh bread. A simple smell, but powerful, right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, what about nature? The environment around the town.
Describing the natural surroundings helps complete the picture. Is it near mountains, the sea, woods?
How can you describe that simply?
You could say, there are trees and hills around my hometown, or my hometown has a beautiful lake nearby.
And they're examples of nature.
James mentioned a river and lots of trees in his area. Erica described her hometown having farms and lots of green fields, giving that rural feel.
We touched on likes and dislikes earlier, but how can you be a bit more specific about them?
Yeah, going beyond just, I like it or I don't like it, giving a reason makes your opinion clearer, more insightful.
Like how? What were their examples?
Erica said she liked how peaceful her town was, but she didn't like that there weren't many shops. So, a balanced view.
Right.
And James said he liked how friendly the people were, but he didn't like the really cold winters. Again, specific pros and cons.
That makes sense. Now, sometimes you want to compare your hometown to, say, where you live now. How do you do that in English?
Comparisons are really useful. They give context, help someone understand your hometown by relating it to something else.
What are some good comparative phrases for beginners?
You can use patterns like, my hometown is smaller than the city I live in now, or my hometown is quieter than the capital city, or maybe focus on features. There are more parks in my hometown. There is less traffic.
Good structures to practice. Okay, weather again, but more detail, like seasons.
Yeah, talking about the weather through the year gives a much fuller sense of the climate.
Example sentences for seasonal weather.
You could say things like, it is very hot in summer. It snows a lot in winter. Spring is very beautiful there. It rains quite a bit in October.
And did James and Erica give seasonal details?
Yep. Erica described warm, sunny summers and cold, snowy winters. James mentioned rainy springs, but also pointed out they bring beautiful flowers, so showing different signs of season.
Okay. Schools are a big part of growing up. How can you talk about your school experience?
Sharing about school is super relatable for most people. It's a common ground.
How could a learner talk about their school?
Simple descriptions. I went to a small school. There is one big school in my hometown. Or share a feeling or habit. My school was fun. I walked to school every day.
And did James and Erica mention their schools?
Briefly, yeah.
Yeah.
James mentioned his school's name, River Street School, and that it had a big playground. Erica mentioned hers, Maple Hill School, and even a favorite teacher. Little personal touches.
Okay, what about jobs? The economy of the town.
Right. Talking about common jobs gives insight into what the town is like, how people live.
What kinds of jobs might you mention?
Depends on the place, right? Could be. Many people work on farms. Or teachers and shop workers are common jobs. Maybe there's a big factory. Or people work in schools, hospitals, offices.
Did James and Erica give job examples?
James mentioned fishing being important in his town, but also office work, suggesting a mix. Erica mentioned factory work, teaching, and healthcare jobs being common in hers.
Almost there. What about visiting your hometown? Going back?
Yeah, talking about visiting or wanting to visit shows your ongoing connection. It's a natural way to kind of wrap up the topic.
Useful phrases for that.
Things like, I want to visit my hometown soon. Or, I go back once a year to see family. I usually visit during the holidays.
And their visiting habits.
James said he visits every summer to see friends, focusing on the social side. Erica mentioned going back for holidays because it's peaceful and relaxing for her.
Okay, so we've really unpacked a lot from that, talking about your hometown audio from IELTS podcast. What are the main takeaways for our beginner listeners?
I think the biggest thing is that it doesn't have to be overwhelming. James and Erica give you this really clear, manageable way to approach it, topic by topic.
Yeah, they break it down: location, size, people, weather, places, memories, food, all those building blocks. And the language they use is pretty simple and direct.
Exactly. And there are examples, from Boston or Erica's town in Canada. They make it feel real, relatable, not just abstract rules, perfect for beginners.
So, what's a good next step for listeners? How can they actually use this?
Well, the best thing is just to start thinking about your own hometown using these ideas. Maybe jot down some simple notes in English for each category.
Like a little cheat sheet?
Kind of. Then try saying it out loud. To yourself first, maybe. Or even better, try describing it to a friend, especially if they're also learning English.
Yeah.
Or find a native speaker if you can. Just practice. Don't aim for perfection straight away.
Absolutely. And of course, we definitely recommend listening to the actual Talking About Your Hometown audio from my IELTS podcast. You'll hear James and Erica directly.
Yeah, hearing the full thing gives you a better feel for the flow, the pronunciation. You can just search for IELTS podcast talking about your hometown.
Great suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you're thinking about your own hometown using these tips, here's a final little thought to leave you with.
Okay.
What's one small thing about your hometown, maybe a specific sound or a smell, or even just the way the light looks at a certain time, something tiny maybe, that always makes you smile and feel connected to that place?
That's a nice question.
Maybe thinking about that one little detail is the perfect personal way to start telling your own hometown story in English.